Algebra 1. So today we are going to do a shortened version of this note sheet which is in your packet since we've missed a few days because of our inconvenient water main break. So go ahead and find this note sheet, Unit 5, Day 10 notes in your packet. But then we're actually going to come on down to this right here. Alright, so we're only going to do part of these notes, and only the stuff we go over in this video will be on your test. You'll have 3 multiple choice questions on your test that has to do with this material. So here we go. All of this line of best fit stuff has to do with something called correlation. Correlation is a fancy way of talking about how things are related. For example, research shows that there is a correlation or relationship between how much fast food people eat and what their weight is. So what do you think the relationship or correlation is between these two subjects? Take a second to think about it. So in general, as the amount of fast food increases, generally speaking, a person's weight will increase as well. So this is called positive correlation. And again, this is called positive correlation because as one variable goes up, so does the other. We can also represent this correlation with a graph. A graph that shows positive correlation is one that has a positive slope. So let's check out the example below. Here you have a scatter plot. You'll notice it's not exactly linear. The dots aren't all in a perfectly straight line, but it does definitely have a trend. If you go ahead and you draw a line that models that data that goes through it, you can see that this line does have a positive slope. And we know because the dots are trending upward, so they are going uphill. Okay, so if you see a graph like this, this means there's positive correlation. So I want you to notice that there is this little point off on its own. This is called an outlier. So even though it doesn't follow the trend of the rest of the points, there's still a clear positive relationship between the majority of the points. So for example, like there are some people that eat fast food their entire lives and they're just skinny as a string bean. Okay, they just don't gain weight. But that's not normal. That's not normal for the majority of people. Okay, that person would be an outlier. All right, so next, another type of correlation is called negative correlation. So let me give you an example. What is the relationship between the temperature outside and the number of layers that someone puts on? Well, we're approaching winter here. So as your temperature decreases, generally speaking, the number of layers you put on would increase. So this is called negative correlation. Negative correlation. And again, the reason this is called negative correlation is because as one amount increases, the other amount decreases. Okay, so you can see the arrows are going opposite directions here. We can also represent correlation with a graph. A graph that shows negative correlation is one that has a negative slope. All right, so again, you've got this graph right here. If you were to draw a line through the points that kind of model the direction of the points, you would notice this line has a negative slope. And I know that because the points and the line are both trending downward or downhill. All right, so we talked about positive correlation, we talked about negative correlation. Next, we're going to talk about something called no correlation. An example would be, what is the relationship between how much money someone makes and their favorite sport? So how much money someone makes and their favorite sport. We say that this is no correlation because it really doesn't matter. Maybe someone makes a lot of money and likes football. Maybe someone makes not a lot of money and likes football. Maybe someone makes a decent amount of money and doesn't like sports at all. It really, it depends on so many other different factors. It doesn't really have anything to do with how much money someone makes. So there's no relationship between these things, and that's why we call this no correlation. So again, the reason this is called no correlation is because there is no discernible, meaning no obvious relationship between these two topics. We can also represent correlation with a graph. A graph that shows no correlation is one that shows no pattern between its points. So if you look at this, all of these dots are just everywhere. There's no pattern. It's not going uphill. It's not going downhill. It's just kind of a blob of points. So all points are scattered. There's no clear trend. All right, so there's all your information. Now we're just going to try some practice examples. All right, here we go. So what I want you to do is I want you to take like 5 minutes. I want you to try these examples yourself. Your answers are either going to be positive, negative, or no correlation. Try numbers 1 through 11. Stop after this, and then we're going to go through our answers. All right, so go ahead, pause your video. I want you to try 1 through 11 yourself, and then once you've tried all 11, I want you to come back, watch the rest of the video. Okay, and pause it. All right, welcome back. All right, we're going to go through our answers. So first, your eye color versus your age. This should be no correlation because you could be really young and have blue eyes or really old and have blue eyes. It just really doesn't matter. Okay, the amount of hours you work versus the amount of money you make in general, especially if you have an hourly job, the more hours you work, the more money you make. So this would be positive correlation. And I'm just going to put a plus. The amount of sleep you get versus daily temperature. Well, we live in houses and we can change the temperature of our house. So this is no correlation. Doesn't really matter. All right, this next one's tricky. The amount of water in a barrel versus the time on a hot, sunny day. This is actually going to be negative correlation. The reason for that is as the barrel is in the hot, sunny day longer, so as the time increases, the amount of water is actually going to decrease because of the water evaporating, okay, because of evaporation. So since my arrows are going different directions, this is negative correlation. All right, number 5. This one, some of you are going to argue about. Remember, there is such a thing as an outlier where it doesn't follow the trend. But in general, if you are spending more time on school and doing your homework and doing all of those things, spending time on school, in general, your grade will be higher. Okay? So this would be positive correlation. Next. Number of cars on a road versus the speed of the cars. Well, as there are more cars on the road, that's something called traffic. And in traffic, the speed of the cars goes down. More cars, the slower they're going to go. This is negative correlation. The time you spend working out versus the percent fat of your body. Okay, again, in general, if you're spending more time working out, the percent fat will go down. So this is negative correlation. Again, arrows going opposite directions. And number of shoes you own versus where you live. This is no correlation. Okay. All right, last 3. Number 9, all the points are scattered. This should be no correlation. Number 10, points are clearly traveling downwards. This would be negative correlation. And number 11, There is a trend going upwards, so this would be positive correlation. All right, there you go. So that's how to do negative, positive, and no correlation problems. And these are the only types of problems you will see on your test. Well, the only types of correlation problems you will see on your test coming up in a few days. So have a good one. Bye-bye.